been hot, so please excuse me if I have a Oreo ice cream to start the show with. I'm sure you guys won't mind me, and I'm sure you guys are probably jealous, most of you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Tic Tac Transfer Khanage show. It's been a long, hectic day for me. I'm so sorry. The show was supposed to start at 9, then 9:30, then 10. And at 9:59, I realized I hadn't sent Mo the stream. Evan, ever the professional, was in 5 minutes early, everything ready, set to go. And Mo was thinking, Grizz, where's the link? So it's all my fault. But ladies and gentlemen, we are here. Thank you very much for joining us on this Friday sweltering evening here. Evan, how is it over there? My God, it's been hot today. It's been sunny. I think we're going to pay for it over the weekend with humongous storms. But how you been?
Well, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so on average, usually cooler than the rest of California. So I would say on average, it's probably been much warmer where you are. But generally speaking, I would not describe any of my recent weather as sweltering. So the ice cream seems like an understandable choice given your circumstance.
I'm telling you, it's ice cream right now. I mean, Mo, I don't know about you, but ice cream with a cup of tea straight away, for me, is an illegal mix.
Illegal mix.
Illegal mix.
Yeah. An acquired taste, perhaps. Maybe not for me.
That's right. Acquired taste.
But yeah, it's definitely by UK standards on the sweltering side, a bit hot and bothered are a lot of people, including Liverpool fans, and we'll discuss that in just a moment.
We will indeed, as my very own personal friend and great contributor of the channel, by the way, who does all the special one-on-one YouTube videos. I don't know if you guys have checked them out. If you haven't, I'm very disappointed. Make sure you go and check them out. The half spaces with Nurbeats are quite a thing. Go and check them out. He says, thrilled to have special guest Mo Chatra. No, enough of that special guest. He's part and parcel of the furniture now. Like, I don't think we should. Don't you think, Evan, we don't need to call him a special guest anymore? He's part and parcel of the furniture. It says, once he messages me and says, I'm free, like he did at the end of the week. He said, I'm busy all night, every night. I'm busy. He thought he could get away with it, Evan. Mm-hmm. So he thought, Friday night, just don't stream on Friday night. So I'll tell him I'm only free on Friday night. Little did he know, I'm going to text him and take him up on that offer. So here he is.
Impressive.
I'm a tactician. You should know that.
Yeah.
Thrilled to have special guest Mo Chatra, a renowned expert on football finances, joining us to talk on Liverpool strategy. Is FSG using a sell-to-buy approach to this transfer window again? Controversial. We'll discuss that. And we'll discuss all things Romeo Lavia, of course. We'll discuss Trent's coming back. Well, I guess we'll start off with that, Pre-season tomorrow. Believe it or not, like it or not, it is what it is. Eight senior players, I believe, are coming back. Damn, I should have the names for all of them. Someone in the chat, wonderful people, nearly 250 of you guys in there. Smash a like button, subscribe if you haven't. All of that good stuff first and foremost. The 8 players, one of those who apparently is very eager and has not taken a holiday and is very ready. Trent Alexander-Arnold, a player, that we all criticized at some point last season. Maybe rightly so, maybe whatever, system flaws, personal attitude issues, problems. Well, he's put that all to bed and decided he wants to start early and he wants to be ready.
Absolutely. And he's breathed new life into Liverpool in this inverted fullback, a deep line playmaker role, whatever you want to call it. And he is the type of player that Liverpool will be building around for the next decade. So it's absolutely inspiring, and it helps us romanticize the preseason concept as we know it when we see our star players, just sacrificing their off seasons to come back in even better shape. Trent's not alone. I'm sure you saw the pictures of Captain Jordan Henderson working out and all of these things. So this just helps me romanticize preseason even more than I already do, Grizz, because it's great. You get to see the new signings, you get to see some of the academy kids who you might not have seen too much, see if they can make a splash in preseason in the first team. And it's all very low stakes. And, Liverpool are usually in some exotic place playing, friendlies and stuff. So yeah, for me, it's the most casual and less, heart attack inducing version of Liverpool, which I think we all need before things get really scary come August.
It is, Mo, I'm not going to lie, I'm like an excited kid on his first day at school again. Every time preseason, doesn't matter what's happened during the summer, doesn't matter what's happened during last season. For me, automatically, I can deny it all I want. Like, no, this time I'm not going to be so invested. This time I'm not going to be so emotionally attached. But I tell you what, on the eve of that preseason, I'm excited again. I want to see the players roll in, the first bleep tests, all sorts. It's going to be a bit different without our very own king of the bleep tests, James Milner. But are you looking forward to preseason and sort of some wrongs to be righted? What's the phrase? Wrongs to be corrected. I don't know.
I know what you mean.
But I like saying it the wrong way around. So it's not wrongs to be righted before people think I'm serious. I'm joking.
Righting wrongs.
Righting wrongs.
Righting your wrongs. Yeah, that.
This is why we've got Mo Chatra on. This is why. Are you obviously with that and also the new players' excitement? Are you buzzing or are you still not ready?
Yeah, no, there's always that anticipation. There's always the excitement, and especially when there's some new signings, and to see some of the footage, some of the pictures about how they're blending in, how they're mixing in with the new players around them. So that's always good. And then if we then hear alongside that, and we'll talk about it perhaps later on, about one or two more incomings as well, the excitement grows even more. So, this is what it's all about. It's all about, especially when you've had a frustrating or a disappointing season, to put that in the past, to park it to one side, and to look ahead and to look forward. Now, that's not to say that all fans take the same approach. There'll be lots of fans who will be extremely negative, before everyone's even turned up for pre-season. But, you have to be hopeful. You have to be positive, because if you aren't, then what's the point? So that's what I'm all about.
You have to be positive. You have to be happy. Some would say you have to be.
Well, very good. Mo is somebody that, at the end of last season, he tweeted a message, or he shared a message on his socials, it felt like it was from the heart, about how disappointed he was, and, maybe that he'd let the fans down, and maybe obviously by extension that the rest of the players felt that way as well. And it was good. It was good to hear that, where it was stripping away some of the kind of PR speak and just speaking in a way that connected with us as fans. We felt that frustration during last season. Our expectations were high. Yes, we didn't even last summer get the kind of business done that many of us hoped, but we still felt, look, we came very close to winning the lot. So we should still be able to have a better season than we all ended up seeing. And, Mo, I think, feels that he's got something to prove. And, there's also speculation that this could be his last season. He's 31. He'll finish this season, about 32 years of age. And, he will still have, a couple of years left on his contract. But will that be the time for him to get one final big payday in Saudi or somewhere else, whilst Liverpool can cash in and make a sum of money to invest in maybe younger players, or will he still look to stick around? So that's a question I think that will run and run throughout the remainder of this forthcoming season. So whether it's his last season or his penultimate season, he, more than most, will feel like he really wants to let the Liverpool fans get back to what they're accustomed to, which is being a challenger once again.
I'll start off with you, actually, because you've raised that point and question. I'll put you on the spot. And is it Mohamed Salah's last season, in your opinion? And should we consider a huge offer if it was to come next season? Look, there may be offers, there may have been attempts, but I know for a fact that Mohamed Salah is not interested this season and he's waved them all away, shooed them all away. But would you consider it next season? And do you think we should? What was your opinion on that?
I think it'd be foolish not to consider it. I prefer him to stay around for another several years, ideally in an ideal world. He's a legend of the club. He's a bona fide legend, all-timer. Goes without saying. But at the same time, the football club has to move on. It's no player is bigger than any club. And if the offer is right, and especially if we see a regression in his outputs, then it's certainly worth considering. But ideally, I'd like him to stay around for a bit longer. But if it makes financial sense, and if there's a good deal to be had for an exciting up-and-coming player to slot in on that right side of our attack, then I think it'd be foolish to just dismiss it completely.
Evan, what's your thoughts on the situation? Yes, unfortunately, alas, the team that we've seen in all its glory in the last 7 years will slowly be dismantled. We have seen already evidence of it being dismantled. We know the players that have gone. Mohamed Salah remains, Virgil van Dijk, Fabinho. These guys remain from that. But these guys are all on the wrong side of, Fabinho last season played like he's on the wrong side of 30. I know he's not. But these guys are on the other side of 30 now. Powers are waning. Would you consider it even, Mohamed Salah next season?
Like Mo says, I think you absolutely have to consider it. But, us three here, first and foremost, we're fans. We're romantics. We want a legend like Mohamed Salah to break all the records and to retire at Liverpool. We want him to have his statue outside of Anfield. We want all of these things for Mohamed Salah. And that's not to say he wouldn't get one should he leave within the next 2 years or so. I would say there's an argument that you shouldn't think about the typical things you think about a 30-plus-year-old attacker when it comes to Mohamed Salah. People think of the decline of physical attributes. Mohamed Salah not only has the work ethic and the self-control and all of those great off-pitch personality traits to keep himself in great shape, but he also just seems to have won the genetic lottery just in terms of his body composition. It's such a low body fat percentage, combined with his desire to keep himself in peak condition at all times. You could make a very convincing case that he's the type of guy who's going to be like Modric. He's still going to be running around bossing European midfields at 36, 37. I mean, Benzema only just went and left Europe's top 5 leagues. That's the reigning Ballon d'Or winner. And he was 35, 36. So I'm not too worried about Salah's powers waning, just in terms of the typical decline you start to see within the next few years of a player his age. But strictly from a financial sense, Grizz, you absolutely have to consider it. And that's why it's good that you don't have maybe romantics like the three of us running the club. You know what I mean? Because we probably wouldn't always act in the best interest just because we want whatever the fans want, But yeah, if a sizable offer comes in, you absolutely do have to consider it because it's just tough to turn down. I would caveat that by saying that, assuming that this big offer is coming in from Saudi Arabia, I think you could afford to reject it and have them just come in next year, because I don't see their interest in Mohamed Salah from sort of like a PR perspective as like the jewel of their league. I don't see that disappearing just because he's 33 and they made an offer when he was 32, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. What doesn't make sense is you calling me a romantic. Not often I've been called a romantic.
All right, but we're all of us are on the scale, Grizz. All of us are there. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Many wouldn't. I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. The Saudi league, the Saudi money, I don't think it's going away. Don't know what you think, Mo. Very briefly, your thoughts on it. I think it's here to stay. If reports are to be believed, 28, what was it? 28 billion pound project? No, 28 million pound project. Which one was it?
Billion with a B.
Oh, sugar plum.
Yeah.
They're not going away, Mo. They're not going away.
Not for a few years. So the bigger picture with all of this is that, you know, they have seen how football can have a positive influence on the perception of a country or a region. They call it sports washing. And obviously, Saudi gets bad PR for a variety of reasons. However, they also know that one of the most popular products out there is football, and especially Premier League football. And so therefore, recruiting players from the Premier League is a way in which they feel that improving the perception of Saudi by extension through the Saudi League can be of benefit. And the bigger picture with all of this is that they're making a big play for the World Cup in 2030. So at the very least, I think we'll continue to see them trying to entice big name players to Saudi between now and the decision for the World Cup being made, which I think will be in the next couple of years. It might be as soon as next year. You know, especially if they do get the World Cup, then you expect at the least for that investment to be very heavy all the way in the lead up to 2030. So that's the kind of bigger picture we're talking about.
Guys, just very quickly, I don't want to keep stopping the stream and asking for sort of likes and subscriptions, but you know, one must. It's a jungle out there. We need as many likes as we can possibly get. We have over 400 of you guys in here. Let's aim for about 250 likes before the end of the stream. We have, of course, as the title says, LFC offer for Lavia ? With a $sign, and I don't know what else.
Bullseye.
One of the admins is used. Yeah, I don't know which admin done the set up the stream today, but bless them all. Is that bullseye? Right. Okay. And then FSG force LFC. FSG force LFC to sell, to buy still ? And then flames with Mo Chatra. I think the flames are for you, Mo. That's what I think the flames are for. But of course, two very, very important topics and subjects to discuss. And one of them, Ev, was with regards to the rebuild that continues to dominate everyone's thoughts, especially when the season and the transfer window is open. Jurgen Klopp asked for most of his business. I think he started off by saying, I think people take it out of context. He said, we're going to try to do as much business as we can. It would be ideal before preseason, but sometimes you have to wait for good players. We have seen two brilliant acquisitions so far. I think we've all chatted to death about how we need to finish it off by getting a further two, would you say, minimum? And that is a centre-back for sure. And also a midfielder that has more defensive qualities, let's say, than as opposed to a DM or a number 6 per se. We have read reports and sort of stories about linking us with Romeo Lavia in the last week or so, after it was decided by the Liverpool hierarchy that Kefren Turan was of no longer interest to us, more so to do with the tactical side of things. We've, of course, got Zabozalai, McAllister, two forward-thinking players. We now need a defensive-minded one. I very much believe Jurgen Klopp has decided that Romeo Lavia is the one he would like. Why do you think, if that's the case, why do you think Romeo Lavia appeals to Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp?
I think there's some the obvious things that stand out is obviously just in the scheme of a succession plan. I mean, he's 19. He's the rare combination of being a teenager with 35 Premier League appearances under his belt already. Albeit for a team that got relegated, he still was a standout. So for a succession planning and trying to get a guy who could stick around for the better part of 10 years, maybe even longer, Romeo Lavia ticks that box. And I think it also speaks to Klopp trying to tick as many boxes in a positional sense, as you would imagine. Because with the signing of Dominic Szoboszlai and Alexis McAllister, you now have two sort of progressive, forward-thinking midfielders to go already with the young, promising, progressive, forward-thinking midfielders that you already have. You already have Curtis Jones. You already have Harvey Elliott. Curtis Jones with a great run towards the end of last season, and Harvey Elliott racking up a great amount of minutes for a young player. So now it makes sense that if you're trying to add the most amount of balance into your midfield, it makes sense to go and get someone who you would describe as an out-and-out six. Nobody is ever 100% one thing or the other, but definitely someone who trends towards a certain direction. Here on this graph, this is all about players who register the most ball recoveries per 90 in the Premier League, and then the bottom one is just cut off there. That's just progressive carrying distance per 90. So that's just how far they carry the ball in yards per match per 90. And as you can see, Romeo Lavia is right on Premier League average for progressing the ball just by carrying it up the pitch. But there are only 6 or 7 players with more ball recoveries per 90 than Romeo Lavia in the Premier League. And if you look around, it's elite company, Grizz. You have Casemiro, established European Champions League quality holding midfielder, Declan Rice, who's about to become the most expensive British player to transfer, domestic transfer English British player. I know Bellingham's the most expensive. Rodri, of course, Partey, Jorginho, Guimaraes. These are players not only much senior, but players who are much more established. He's right up there in terms of winning the ball back. And obviously, I think I speak for all Liverpool fans when I say that was so much of Liverpool's problem last season. I mean, there were games, Grizz, where I could count the amount of tackles we won all 90 minutes on one hand in the midfield. And it's not good enough, especially if you're a team that needs to commit men forward to break a deep block like Liverpool so often have to do. If you're going to ask Trent Alexander-Arnold from right back to become a final third player, then you need to be able to win tackles and stop transitions, recover possession when we are inevitably dispossessed, trying to punch through a block. So Lavia would definitely help in that sense. And over here, this is now just sort of more of an all-encompassing thing. And what you'll notice here, Grizz and Mo, is that there's a mix of players here. On one hand, you have attacking outlets like Elliott, Michael Olise, Wilfred Nanto. These are offensive-minded players playing further up the pitch. And the metrics here are a successful dribble percentage on the bottom and offensive duels won on the side. So an offensive duel is when you are in possession and a defender is challenging you, and you still come away with the ball. It's essentially a 50-50 one where you are already in possession of the ball. And then the bottom is just successfully dribbling, successfully creating separation from an opponent. And as you can see, Elliott, Olise, Nanto, leaders in this category, but then you have more out-and-out box-to-box defensive outlets. Boubacar Kamara from Aston Villa, Moises Caicedo for Brighton, of course, Liverpool have been interested in for a while, Romeo Lavia, Andre Onana from Everton. So Lavia, in both when compared to seniors and then when compared to players his own age, he seems to come out on top. And this is really, really impressive, Grizz, because so often when you're recruiting from a lesser team or even just a team that just got relegated, obviously the stats are more biased towards players on better teams. That's why Elliott's at the top over here, Rodri and those guys are to the top over there. But Lavia to be hanging and chatting around these guys in terms of the underlying metrics of the game, I think that makes him special, absolutely special. And just away from the numbers for a second, Grizz, one thing I always love to point out when we're talking about Romeo Lavia is although City are such a very well-run club with a great scouting network and they're constantly doing the right choices with recruitment, it's worth noting that Lavia was actually not a sort of transfer committee signing. He wasn't found by a team of analysts. He was handpicked by Pep Guardiola from a U16 Belgian tournament. Guardiola went to this tournament in person at the invitation of Kevin De Bruyne one offseason, saw Romeo Lavia playing for the Anderlecht U16s, and snapped him up. So that is one of my, and for me, that speaks volumes. That's one of the greatest, if not the greatest tactician of all time, thinking this kid has a great future in the game, not just in the game, but potentially for my team. And I think it is begrudgingly, I think Pep Guardiola only let go of Lavia last summer begrudgingly. And I think the buyback clause that City have on him at 40 million says it all.
Mo, Evan sold him to me. I was sold anyway. None of Your Business is back in the chat. Long time no see. None of Your Business. One of my favorite contributors to the chat. Love the name. Love the profile picture. Smash the likes, lads. He says. Are you sold on Lavia? Was you expecting or hoping to have a more experienced player coming in? Because we've got experience in McAllister, and we've got I'd say one of the most elite world talents in Szoboszlai, on the cusp of being world class. What was you anticipating or hoping for in terms of the defensive-minded recruit? Are you one of those that says Fabinho may be much better with young legs around him and a system change? So therefore, succession planning is the right way of going? Because if it's succession planning and future proofing, then Lavia makes the sense. If we're saying Fabinho, we're not going to see the great Fabinho again, then a more established DM would come in. But a more established DM would want more game time, right? I don't think we're in a position to write off Fabinho from Jurgen Klopp and the coach's staff's thinking, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there have been plenty of cases over the years where a player has had an absolute stinker of a season, and many have written that player off, and then that player has rebounded in spectacular form the following season. So obviously we'll all be hoping that that's the case with Fabinho, that it's not the case that he's gone into permanent decline and it will never be the same player that we saw between, say, 2018 through till 21-22. But, if he isn't ever going to reach those levels again, then it would make sense for a player to come in who may, in 23-24, play second fiddle, ostensibly, to the player, but with a view of being phased in as Fabinho is phased out, in the way that we saw Pep Guardiola do with Fernandinho. He was an exceptional DM for them, phased out over a couple of years. Rodri then was phased in spectacular way and became the best DM in the league by a distance. So I'd like to hope that Klopp can do that. So that therefore means that a younger DM who has the patience to perhaps spend a bit more time on the bench, maybe more by way of substitute appearances and less starts, but knowing that perhaps the following season there'll be more starts and then even more after that. That's the kind of player we want. So on that basis, Lavia would be an ideal signing. I mean, the player that I did want right at the start, before the season even finished, was Agat. But obviously he signed with PSG, and perhaps he was a player who may have expected to get more regular starts. And so therefore, if he was to come in, that might have meant that Fabinho would have to go this summer.
Yeah, you're not the only one. When you mentioned that name, Evan has withdrawal symptoms. You've just as he was getting over him, you've managed to bring back the memories.
I'm sorry.
It happens. It's no problem. I've told him to get over it. He's well grown up now. He needs to get over it, Agate. But look, Romeo Lavia, my thoughts on him. I see so much of a baby Caicedo. And often we're asked to bring in Moises Caicedo before he reaches the 80, 90 million levels. I understand Romeo Lavia will still be significant, will be of significant amount in terms of, so our understanding, or going by reliable journalists' understanding, is Southampton won a £50 million fee for him. They know that the figure based on sort of City's buyback clause is 40 million. And obviously they want that bit more, which is absolutely the entitlement, right, lads? Southampton have very few crowns in the jewel, I believe. I don't think they have any more left. Jewels in the crown, I should say, even. It's one of those days, weekends. It's hot. Allow me. I don't think they've got that many sellable assets, Evan. I think Romeo Lavia is probably their jewel in the crown. And they have every right to ask for 50 million. But do Liverpool have the right to bargain the situation that we're in, the pressure that FSG, Jurgen Klopp, is in. The fans are demanding signings regardless of fees. Majority of them. There's a few sane ones left, like me and you and Mo. But everyone's saying just pay the fee, just pay the fee. I believe we're in negotiations with him. I believe, and you guys know when I say I believe, take it how you want. I believe. You don't have to believe. You don't have to watch. You don't have to comment. I believe we are in negotiations with them. I believe those negotiations are going okay. Like no one's walked away from the table. I believe we want to pay around the 40 million figure, including add-ons. So like a 35 million plus whatever, 5-7 million. They're not budging at the moment. It's normal negotiations at this stage, right? We have a right to bargain. What do you think is worth? A few questions all rolled into one there. Go for it. The floor is yours.
Okay. I want to start this off by saying that anybody who has sort of the just pay whatever the quoted fee is, anybody who thinks like that, I would love to sell you a house, because you just don't know how negotiations work. And for me, that is just like the most chronically online opinion you can have, because it's just not how the real world works. That's not how negotiations are done at your local used car dealership, and that's certainly not how negotiations are done at the height of billion-dollar corporations dealing with each other. So that's never the case. Here's the thing. I'll caveat that by saying I think after a year of playing for Liverpool in an upcoming season, Romeo Lavia will become a 70 to 80 million pound player. That's how much I rate him. But from a financial aspect, you don't just do it. You know what I mean? And Southampton aren't going to budge right now because of the well-publicized interest of clubs like Chelsea and Arsenal. So, and Liverpool, you don't want to be seen as soft, so you don't just cave immediately. So it makes sense why we haven't just immediately just done it, because we're only halfway through the window. And here's the thing: if somebody leaves, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I'll just caveat that and say, if somebody leaves and you get some money, and now all of a sudden you have more money than you thought you did, you maybe start shopping, with all due respect to the kid, in a different bracket than Romeo Lavia. If somebody bigger becomes available, you don't just want to pay it out of some like some random pressure you might feel, and then somebody even more major becomes available and you're like, crap, well, I just paid 50 million for a 19-year-old kid. I'll do respect to him. I just paid 50 million for a project player, a kid who's ready, who looks ready for the Premier League. We can say that, but he's still a project. So these things, you have to be patient. You know what I mean? If Liverpool can hold out with Southampton and get things down to that 40 million all-inclusive price tag that you quoted there, Grizz, then that 10 million could be used to seal a big center back signing later down the road. You know what I mean? You don't want to be priced out of a great center back down the line because you're 10 to 15 million pounds short, and you let Southampton bully you in negotiations. This is how these things work. Like, yeah. I am not even. Mo has forgotten more things about football finance than I will ever know. But even I can tell you that this is just how you negotiate. This is how human beings negotiate. No one, you just don't cave immediately. You know what I mean? If you think something is great and you think you're getting great value, Liverpool obviously rate Szoboszlai high enough to just go walk into Leipzig headquarters and put 60 million pounds on the table. I get it. But that's not the case for every single player on Liverpool's short list. That's just kind of how I feel about the whole value for money and the current standoff I guess we seem to find ourselves in.
Yeah, look, I kind of need to come to you then, Mo, in that case, because I mean, Evans sort of nailed it for me. I was nodding away in agreement, not just for the sake of it, like
not just to be polite,
Yeah, not just to be polite, but when it's time not to be polite, I'm there as well.
Oh yeah,
I'm there. But no, I was nodding in agreement. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I mean, got a couple of super chats that kind of, guys, I never ignore your super chats. I just try to wait for the right segment and sort of to speak about them. Michael says, give Southampton 30 million, Phillips and or Norton. I think he means Morton, unless he means give them the antivirus, Norton antivirus. Is it some antivirus something, isn't it? The problem with that, Michael, is they have to want Phillips or Tyler Morton. Those kind of deals are very, like, sort of in our brains, in our heads. The other team needs to be wanting to act as well on that. Dinesh says, thanks for the super chat. He says, I think we have to sell. We have 8 to 9 midfielders in the squad. If we buy another midfielder, all will not get games. As the Coppish boys shout. The Coppish boys, of course, Cal, Drifty, and Matt, of course. They said on stream. And Adam reminds us, not a super chat, but a very good comment that I started. He says the 20% sell-on clause for City is the killer. If City buyback is 40 million, then Southampton will require a minimum 48 million bid this summer to get 40 million for themselves. I like that comment because I think it's quite relevant. But look, first and foremost, address the idea about we have too many midfielders, because we heard this last season, didn't we, Mo? We do not want to get into a numbers game when talking about midfielders for Liverpool. It's not about the numbers that we see on paper, isn't it?
Well, you're right. I mean, that was exactly the argument last summer that, we have X amount of midfielders, so why do we need to sign anyone? And look how that turned out. So let's not go there again. Let's learn our lessons. And I think that, look, we are a team that needs to rebuild, and we do have a DM who, hopefully will improve on what we saw for large chunks of last season. But there's every possibility he may regress even further. And if that is the case, and we don't sign a DM in this window, then the alternative is Jordan Henderson, who, some will argue can do somewhat of a job, in the 6 role. I personally would be dead against that. I don't think, I think his legs have gone, and the games too often last season were passing him by. He was almost like somebody on the pitch, seeing players bomb past him, very slow on the turn. I just don't think that that's the kind of player that, if he is the answer, then, that's a very worrying kind of situation for me. So, I do really think we need to get a DM in, and, that is important. And look, beyond the numbers, I think there's still a possibility that we could see one player go, at least, from that midfield group. And obviously, there's been a lot of talk that Thiago is a player that is being sought by, again, the Saudis. And I wouldn't be shocked if he did go. If he remained, I'd be quite happy. I think, he can still add value. But clearly, he cannot be trusted because of his terrible injury record. As great a talent as he is, he's on his day the most naturally gifted of all of the players that we have. But unfortunately, he just can't stay fit, and we cannot rely on a player like that. So that's why if he goes, he goes. But yeah, you're right. I don't think we can just think, right, we've got enough now. That's fine, because you always have to put these things into context.
I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if Thiago departs this summer. Regrettably, unfortunately, I've been flip-flopping whether if I would accept if I was in the shoes or not. No, I don't think we'd sell him for the purpose of raising funds, so to speak. I think it would just be. I just think it would be another sign of ruthlessness from the management, Klopp in particular, in terms of I'm just not having unavailable players anymore, even if they are half the talent that Thiago provides. But that's one to keep an eye on. But Mo, sticking with you, in that case, people are suggesting that. Or there's rumours because of a couple of journalists have come out and said that Liverpool need to sell. Now, the key word there is, Mo, is it a need to sell, right, to raise funds? Or is just like Evan is proposing, just a ploy that everyone uses local journalists, and it's a ploy. We're in the business of doing smart business, and we're probably one of the smartest operators when we do actually do business. Financially, are we in a position, and this is where we all come to you and eagerly await your pearls of wisdom, are we financially in a position to go ahead and purchase more players without needing to sell?
Well, the short answer is we should be, yes. Look, let me just caveat that. I cannot say with 100% certainty, and the reason why is I'm not privy to the club's finances. I don't have insider access to their accounts. So, I cannot say with 100% certainty that, look, the club absolutely has the funds available without the need to sell. I think that the statements that were made by the likes of James Pearce in the last week were more to do with the earlier discussion point around where we have X number of midfielders. So in order to bring any further midfielders in, then it's about freeing up spots. Because we have 9/10, depending on if you class Trent as a midfielder. So I think that's where people have latched onto that, and then straight away, right, FSG out again. So let me just address that point. Do we need to sell to buy? So that is a common misconception that goes around the Liverpool fan base on Twitter, especially, that we're always having to sell to buy. So let me just, I will address misconceptions, whether it makes FSG look good or bad, and I'll often make statements which in some cases make them look bad. But on this instance, I'm actually going to do something which might upset those that want FSG out. Okay, so since June 2019, Liverpool, in terms of cash, have spent over 300 million towards acquisition of players. Okay, that includes spend on deals that were entered into prior to June 2019. 300 million plus between June 2019 and the May 2022. So that's a 3-year period. In the same period, in terms of money coming in from sales, less than 100 million. So we spent 3 times as much on acquisitions as we made from sales. So the whole thing about we only will spend what we bring in from sales is a myth. It is not true. Okay. The more valid point is, are we spending enough? And I've argued that we haven't spent enough. Okay. And part of the reason for that is our owners operate in a very different way to others. So even if you look at an Arsenal, there's no oil money involved in Arsenal's case. But what their owners have done in the last 2-3 years is actually started investing their own money into Arsenal Football Club. So if you're wondering how on earth are they able to finance a deal for a Declan Rice at over £100 million, and Liverpool would never entertain such an idea, a large part of the reason is that in the last 2-3 years, their ownership has changed their model, whereby their owners now invest their own money into the club. Something that we know FSG don't do. FSG will not invest their own money into Liverpool Football Club. And that's never mind the likes of Manchester City's owners, or even Chelsea. I mean, Bowley has a consortium. Bowley's the front man, but really we all know it's not exactly a secret that in the background there's a bit of Saudi money at play. So, that is the situation that we're in. But to say that we have to sell to buy is not true, because the club generates more money than nearly any football club in the world. So we are able to finance deals, and we have signed a number of big signings in the last 2-3 years, just not enough of them. And part of the reason for that is our wage bill is enormous. It is so big, 366 million in the 21-22 season. And that part of that is because we pay enormous bonuses. Fans hear about, most of our players are on 200,000 or less, and only Mo is on 350k a week. That's only part of the story. We pay huge bonuses, the likes of which very few, if any, clubs in world football pay. So that is why it limits the amount of funds we then can spend in the transfer window.
On that particular point, then, raises the question in my head while I was listening to you. On the back of that, the wages that have been released in terms of the players that we've let go, and then obviously the incoming players so far, I believe probably half the wages, if not more. On the back of us not winning anything, there's no bonuses to be played. On the back of the new stand that is ready for the new season, on the back of new sponsorship deals that are, I think, due or about to be due, does it leave you in hope, give you hope, and give us Liverpool fans hope that those reasons that you've mentioned, and they're absolutely true, for the purpose of people listening, that's why probably we haven't invested as much. But does it give hope for the future now in the next this window, next 2-3 windows, that we have scope to spend more now because of the fact that a lot of our commercial deals are up and we're going to get more? The new stand is you're going to explain to us how that helps with the revenue, and also the wages and the bonuses are not in play. Does that make sense, or is that a very Grizz Khan layman's way of looking at things?
No, it's not at all. And you make a very valid point. So just starting off with the players that have left on a free, their wages alone were in the region of perhaps about £30 million in a year.
Wow.
But slightly more than that if you then add in bonuses. So we're possibly talking with bonuses, getting up to about £40 million that we are saving from the likes of Jimmy Milner, from Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Naby Keita, and of course Bobby Firmino moving on. And obviously we were paying not exactly a small sum of money to a player that barely got any minutes, Artemelo. We were paying the bulk, if not the entirety of his wage when he was on loan to us from Juve. So big savings there. And on top of that, our income from the from the expanded Anfield Road end will be up by perhaps about £10 million a year. We have got a standard charter deal that has been extended that kicks in from the start of this new season, bringing in another 10 million a year. So I did a bit of analysis recently, and I found that despite the fact that we're missing out on Champions League this season, in terms of the hit on revenue, it's only going to work out about £10 million, believe it or not, because we've got all these other revenue streams that are going up. And at the same time, our wage bill will be down, partly because we've lost these 4 expensive players off of the wage bill. And on top of that, we won't be paying very lucrative Champions League bonuses in this new season either. So that's why I've been very bullish about saying, look, we have funds available to spend. So if we don't end up signing any more players, it won't be because the funds are not there.
Mm-hmm.
The funds are there. And like I was explaining just a couple of moments ago, just between 2019 and 22, we spent over 300 million on transfer fee installments. So we have been spending a lot of money, and, the funds are there to be spent. It's not as if we are skint. It's absolutely not the case. There are sufficient funds there, wage bill going down, revenue still staying pretty close to what they were last season. So the money is there, and it's just a case of now, more a case of, like, Evan touched on earlier, the negotiations and about a variety of factors that come into play. It's not just a simple case of, right, a club wants this amount of money, therefore you go and spend it. We're then having to talk about negotiations around player wages, intermediary fees, agents' fees. That often is a deal breaker, where a club will think, right, the deal's done. For Kia, that whole bullshit about the knee, that was complete nonsense. It was because his representatives were trying to hold Liverpool to ransom at the 11th hour. And Liverpool walked away, and they will do that. So there's so many things that we may not ever hear about. But I think that the club is looking to sign a couple more players at least. Definitely, like we touched on, another midfielder. And I certainly hope that we're looking to get in a centre back as well.
Evan, if that's the case, and I agree with Mo that it's a midfielder and a centre back, then I pose the question to you: or it makes sense then for us to negotiate and try to get the best deal possible? Because if again reports, and I'd say reliable reports are to be believed, the centre back number one target is Levi Colwill from Chelsea. Now we know he won't be cheap. Now we know Chelsea have been blessed with the Saudi money, and which has sort of alleviated a lot of the stress that was piling up in their heads, what they're going to do in the summer. So now they're in a stronger position thanks to the Saudis, because they don't have to sell him, whereas opposed to they needed to offload a lot of players, especially homegrown ones. They get their values worth. If that's the case, Levi Colwill, rumors of 60 million, 70 million even. Do you rate him in that category? A lot of people saying he'd be our new Virgil van Dijk, so to speak. And then therefore it makes us really makes it really careful how we deal with the Moises Caicedo. I wish with the Romeo Lavia situation, we gotta balance it up, right? Or do we go for a total cheaper midfield? A more cheaper centre back, and then pay the price wherever they're asking for Romeo Lavia? Which way around would you like us to go?
That's a great question. How highly do I rate Colwill? I'll start there. I do rate Levi Colwill very, very highly, and it's no secret that he is he's in that tier of player where you become available, we're pushing extremely hard. However, in order for that to happen, he would have to kick up a stink at his academy club, Chelsea. I know apparently he's a Liverpool fan, so I wasn't going to say his boyhood club, because apparently, he's got posters of Steven Gerrard still on his wall. But he would have to kick up a fuss with the club that made him. He would have to walk away from Pochettino's first chapter at the club. Is he willing to do that in order for Chelsea to even come to the table? And that doesn't mean they'll come to the table with a reasonable request. I think the chances are very low, but the interest is there and the desire is there from Liverpool. So it'll remain sort of a hot file, as you would say. But whether the preliminary steps can even be taken to sound out a move, I am not sure. Chelsea, people say, oh, would Chelsea sell to Liverpool? Well, they seem very content to sell to their rivals if the money's right. So I think they would. It's not an issue of us being a top 4 competitor with them. It's more of the fact that they've offloaded some young players already. They obviously have homegrown requirements as well. If they can see Levi Colwill developing into a guy who could play for 10 plus seasons for them, then obviously that helps them out with that. We obviously probably have an eye on that as well with the acquisition or the potential acquisition of Lavia and our interest in him. I don't know, Grizz. Like I said, too many big dominoes would have to fall for preliminary discussions to even happen with Chelsea. But I do, if I'm trying to connect the dots in my head with my earlier point about being patient with the Lavia negotiation, it's us waiting to see perhaps does Colwill kick up a fuss and become available, and Chelsea are willing to sell him. Then you have to be very careful with how much money you're willing to spend on Romeo Lavia, because like I said, you don't want to just cave immediately and then realize you need it. Yeah.
The example that you gave earlier in terms of going for someone like a prospect and a genuine, brilliant prospect, may that be in Lavia, we pay the price. And then, for example, I don't believe it to be true at all, but someone like a Valverde or Tchouameni.
That's exactly what I was going to say too.
But not only player position-wise, now you're making sense even more, because even if we paid that fee for a Lavia and then someone like a Colwill becomes available, but our finances don't stretch. So it doesn't have to be position by position, just the whole overall strategy that budget has to be sort of taken into consideration.
If Liverpool believed that like there were no other elite options on the market or high tier shortlist options that could potentially become available, Lavia would be a Liverpool player right now, because that's they would look around the market, they would look for other value, they would look for better quality, and it wouldn't be there. But obviously, Liverpool feel that dominoes are still yet to fall
Absolutely.
in this market. I mean, Kylian Mbappe hasn't even moved yet. You know what I mean? Declan Rice hasn't even been officially announced by Arsenal yet. So some of the big dominoes in the market that spark off other things and make certain players become available all of a sudden overnight, those big dominoes haven't even fallen. So I think there's a fear, as there always is, but especially this summer when Liverpool have to nail it. They have to get it almost exactly right. You don't want to be left watching all the other big players that you were interested in go elsewhere because you spent all your money by July 8th. You know what I mean? You want to calm down. And especially, let me just add one more point on top of this. Klopp's quote saying, I want players in for preseason. Some players take time. I think the players that you would expect to instantly challenge for starting 11 positions are already at the club and will be reporting for preseason. That's, of course, Alexis McAllister, established Premier League midfielder. That's, of course, Szoboszlai, who's on the younger side, still technically a project, but someone with the quality you would think would instantly challenge Henderson and Elliott's place in the team on that right-hand side. Whereas guys like Lavia, 19, more of a project, it's less prohibitive to the early months of our season if he comes in late in the transfer window, because he would require a betting in process that takes a lot of time anyways.
Absolutely. I want to ask you what John says, DM or left-sided, left-footed centre-back. I misread that actually. I thought he was going to say left-sided centre-back, right-sided. I was going to ask you the question. Left-sided centre-back, right-sided centre-back. Is it important, Mo? Would you prefer more left-sided centre-back, left-footed centre-back? Because we have a lack of left-footed centre-backs. Well, we only have one, right? No, we don't even have one left-footed centre-back. What am I talking about? We don't even have one left-footed centre-back. So is that a must for you? Is that a need for you? Because I've been hearing inquiries for Mark Gahey of Crystal Palace and Per Shaw's of Torino, to name a couple. Is it imperative it's a left-sided centre-back? Left-footed centre-back, sorry, I should say.
I personally would like to see a player come in there, because if this new system will persist and stick, with three at the back, essentially, then we have a player on the left who at the moment I don't think is a great fit for that role, in Robertson. A, because he's more of a conventional left back. And, you know, traditionally when you have three at the back, you go with three centre backs, right? But then B, he is a player in decline. You know, there's no getting away from that in my view. I mean, he's still a very, very talented player, and on his day can still put in an exceptional performance, but he is not the player of 2-3 years ago. So I think that we will continue to see him slide down that slope from the absolute peak that we saw him at, you know, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. So I think, therefore, if we can have somebody to the left of Virgil, with obviously Konate to his right, that would be the ideal for me. And also, getting away from whether Robertson is or isn't a great fit on that left side of that defence, we have at the moment 4 senior centre backs, 3 of which are perhaps injury prone. You know, we've got Matip, who is made of crisps or chips. You know, Gomez almost always seems to get a serious injury every season, which rules him out for 2-3 months at least. Konate, unfortunately, you know, has had his injury issues as well. Even Virgil, but obviously physically he is normally the strongest of all of them. But if you're going into a system where you're looking ideally for 3 centre backs at the back, and you only have 4, and the majority are injury prone, then it's just a recipe for disaster as far as I'm concerned.
It is indeed. So we don't want any disasters. We'd ideally like to bring in a centre back. I believe 100% we will be bringing a centre back, and I believe I believe 85 to 90% will bring in a midfielder as well. I think that should appease the fans. I think it will appease me anyway. I don't really care if it appeases other fans. I'm selfish, right? I'm only here to appease myself, and I think I'll be very happy with that. Like this comment. What's this one? Indian Guna says, Grizz, why is your face looking like it's AI enhanced? I can't give you my skincare routine.
Yeah, it's the wonders of a good skincare routine, my friend.
I can't
We
give
all
that
have
away.
it.
I can't give that away. Totally clear. Grizz should have his own Netflix series. Funny you should say that. That's what I'm going to say right now. But guys that have seen the Big Six vlogs with our visit to New York and Fox Studios, yeah, don't go anywhere. That's what I'll say. But guys, thank you very much for your input, your insight. It's been a tremendous little show, impromptu show. I only thought about it today. Friday night is not a great time to do shows in the UK, especially when it's hot like this, but we've had 600 people persevering with us. Thank you very much for that. That is very, very much appreciated. Mo, you thought you're going to get away with it by saying, I'm only free on Friday night, thinking I'm not going to do it, but here I am. I've got you again. And of course,
I know for next time.
And of course, I value your time. Thank you very much. And Evs, yeah, see you probably Sunday. We see what we got cooking for the Red Fellas on Sunday. Pre-season starts tomorrow. Everyone check out the Liverpool media content. It's going to be on. Oh my God, I'm excited already. That's what it does to you. We're like kids, as I said, on the first day of school. We get excited again. But this has been another great episode of Transfer Khanage. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Until next time, peace, tranquility, and love to all.